Hello all, welcome back to Down the Dice Character Creation, where we make your favorite fictional characters in Pathfinder and Starfinder 2nd Edition. Today, we're building Tsuyu Asui, hero name Froppy. In a world where people cause massive explosions with their bodies, or rewrite the laws of physics on a whim, Froppy has a more down-to-earth quirk. She can do anything a frog can do. While it may sound a bit underwhelming, and trust me, in the context of the show, it kind of is, Froppy manages to combine her keen intellect and martial training with her seemingly mundane quirk to become one of the most reliable utility and support heroes out there. So beware of spoilers, and without further ado, let's get started. So, what do we need to make the rainy season hero? Well, we need to do everything a frog can do. What kind of frog, you might ask? Well, as it turns out, Froppy has the abilities of just about every species of frog imaginable. So she's got your classic frog powers, like powerful jumps and a long prehensile tongue, but we also need a range of mobility options to let us outmaneuver our foes both underwater and on vertical terrain. And that's before we even get into our oddly specific stuff, like secreting mucus that masks your scent or makes enemies itch. All in all, Froppy has a very unique set of skills that might not necessarily make her the first hero you would call in a crisis, but do make her a very dependable ally no matter what life throws your way. Sue is a human with frog powers, and while that might have been enough to tempt me into going an ancestry like Tripkey, the MHA universe includes actual animals with quirks that allow them to function like humans, like Principal Nezu, so we're going to stick with the human ancestry. That said, I'm compromising a bit by choosing the versatile heritage, which lets us pick up adopted ancestry so that we can grab some Tripkey feats down the line. Of course, that also means that we're working with the usual 8 hit points, 2 free ability boosts, which will go into Dex and Intelligence, and a 25-foot movement speed. Pretty standard for most of our builds. Froppy is yet another student in the UA Hero course, so naturally, we're picking up the Martial Disciple background, giving us an attribute boost to both Dexterity and Charisma, and training in Athletics and Warfare lore. We also get the Quick Jump skill feat, letting us make high and long jumps with just 1 action instead of 2. We're not Deku, so we don't need to literally charge up our legs before we leap. Sue is extremely hard to hit, despite her lack of armor, and she focuses on unarmed attacks like powerful kicks and tongue slaps, combined with high-speed mobility. Sounds like a monk to me. As a monk, we only get trained in perception, but that's more than made up for by the fact that we are expert in all saving throws and unarmed defense, making us one of the hardest characters to hit, at least at low levels. For our skills, acrobatics keeps us light on our feet in just about any scenario. Nature helps us understand the diverse abilities of the frogs so we can better emulate them. Society lets us remember all the top-ranking heroes, while stealth enables us to deploy our active camouflage. Survival taps into our amphibian instincts, and finally we have intimidation because, well, let's face it, some people might find frogs a bit creepy. We wrap up our class with trained proficiency in all unarmed strikes, giving us some offense to match our already impressive defenses. For our attributes, strength will start at a +0. Froppy has combat training, but she excels more at supporting the heavy hitters than dealing massive damage herself. Dexterity is a +4. If you can't end a fight quickly with raw power, you need a high armor class to stay in the fight long term. This is especially important since our constitution is only a +1, making our HP pool more like an HP puddle. Intelligence is at a +2. She's not the smartest in her class, but to be fair, she's in a class with Deku, so let's keep our expectations realistic. Wisdom is +0. She's a teenager, and teenagers aren't exactly known for their wise decision making. And finally, Charisma is at a +2, making her a fan favorite character both in her universe and our own. We start this build where all good builds begin, at level 1. I mean, that's obvious. It'd be pretty weird if we dived right into level 13, right? At level 1, monks don't get a subclass, but they do get Flurry of Blows, letting us make 2 unarmed strikes with a single action. And if both those attacks hit the same target, we can bind the damage before applying things like resistances. The attacks still use normal multiple attack penalty though, so we're not exactly going to be super accurate when we flip out. But when we do hit, it'll pack a bit more of a punch thanks to the powerful Fist feature, which boosts our unarmed strike damage from D4s to D6s, and lets us ignore the non-lethal trait. For our Ancestry feat, we're actually going to pick up General Training to pick up the Fleet feat, giving us +5 feet of movement speed with every stride, perfect for someone as mobile as Asui. For our Class feat, I was torn between Crane Stance and Reflective Ripple Stance. Crane Stance boosts our jumping distance, which is obviously on theme, but it also locks us into using Crane Wing attacks, something that would conflict with the choice that we'll be making later. Reflective Ripple Stance, on the other hand, gives us a +1 circumstance bonus to athletics checks to disarm, swim, and trip, and a +2 circumstance bonus to our reflex DC against being disarmed and tripped. Since we're already going to have the jump support from our background, I'm going with a Reflective Ripple Stance to give us swim support right out of the gate. At level 2, we pick up the Flip It Contestant dedication. Technically, this requires us to have an already long prehensile tongue or tail attack, but the feat description does allow for another flexible limb at the GM's discretion, and I'd say our arm is pretty flexible. It's more in the spirit of the build than the letter of the mechanics. Talk to your GM. If they're fine with you playing a character based off the frog girl from your favorite anime, they'll probably be okay with letting you take the tongue fighting feat. But if they're hesitant, you could always use the same build and swap the human ancestry for a snap tongue trip key. Just because we're sticking to the character source material doesn't mean you have to be constrained by it. This feat gives us the tongue last unarmed melee attack, It deals 1d4 bludgeoning damage, has both the grapple and reach traits, and counts as a weapon from the flail group. I'm choosing to believe that Sue can turn off her taste buds at will, otherwise fighting some of these villains might call for a few fortitude saves. We'll also grab the Underwater Marauder skill feat, which prevents us from being off guard while we're in water, and removes the penalty for making bludgeoning attacks underwater, because it'd be pretty weird if the underwater rescue hero who fights with her tongue couldn't use her tongue underwater. Level 3 monks gain Mystic Strikes, which makes their unarmed attacks count as magical weapons, allowing them to bypass resistances to non-magical damage. Because honestly, what are quirks if not just magic by another name? And if that justification felt a little half-baked to you, don't worry, because the next feature we have is much easier to explain. Incredible Movement gives us a plus 10 foot status bonus to our speed, which scales higher as we level up. This makes it much easier to zip around the battlefield, use our increased reach to hit enemies without putting ourselves in danger, and then hop right back to safety. And to top it off, we'll be taking the Incredible Initiative General feat, giving us a plus 2 bonus to initiative rolls, so villains never can get the drop on us. Level 4 is all about jump distance. We're picking up both the Dancing Leaf class feat and the Powerful Leap skill feat, each of which increase our jump distance by 5 feet, increasing our leap distance to an impressive 25 feet with a single action, no roll required. Ground-based difficult terrain is basically non-existent to us. As an added bonus, Dancing Leaf also lets us ignore fall distance for any distance that we fall adjacent to a wall. So even if we do jump too high, we don't have to worry about fall damage. This has the added benefit of making you the best floor is lava player ever, as long as the floor isn't actual lava. Froppy doesn't really like the heat too much. 5th level monks gain Expert Perception and Expert Strikes, which boosts our unarmed attack proficiency and grants us access to critical specializations, though only for brawling unarmed attacks. That means we can slow our enemies down with a well-placed kick, but sadly, no knocking foes prone with our tongue. Slowed is a stronger condition than prone, but it does mean that we have to get in close, so we might provoke a couple reactive strikes trying to get into range. We also pick up the Vomit Stomach Ancestry feat, which yes, is exactly what it sounds like. This lets us literally eject our stomach to reduce our second condition by 2, and make a fortitude save, with a plus 2 bonus, against any ingested poisons for the last minute. Naturally, there is a trade-off. Making our innards our outards leaves us off guard for a round. Honestly, I didn't expect we'd find a perfect match for Froppy's stomach spitting ability, but props to Paizo for putting in such a unique and specific ability, even if it's not a perfect fit for all builds. At level 6, we pick up the Flying Kick class feat. This lets us perform a leap, high jump, or long jump, and make an unarmed strike against an adjacent foe mid-air before falling. Even better, it allows us to ignore fall damage afterward, as long as we don't fall further than the distance we originally jumped. That being the case, this probably isn't your go-to move for jumping off cliffs, unless you also grab the Catfall skill feat, which lets us reduce fall damage based off our acrobatics modifier. Pair the two together, and this might be one of the rare times where leaping before you look might actually work out for you. At 7th level, monks gain their first Path to Perfection, allowing us to boost a saving throw of our choice to master, and treat all successes with that saving throw as critical successes instead. We're going to choose reflex saves because when someone throws a fireball our way, we'd rather not end up as fried frog legs. We also get weapon specialization, giving us a small but welcome boost to our unarmed strike damage, and on top of that, we gain robust recovery, letting us regain additional hit points whenever an ally uses treat wounds or battle medicine on us, so we can bounce back after a tough fight. Bounce back? Yeah, I could probably make a frog punt here, but I won't. That's some real low-hanging fruit, even for this channel. Speaking of low-hanging fruit, at level 8, we take the Snap Falling Fruit feat, letting us use our reaction to grant an ally within reach of our Tongue Lash a +2 circumstance bonus to AC against an incoming physical attack. Basically, we're swatting arrows and potentially even bullets out of the air with our tongue. We also will be picking up Quick Swim, which increases the distance we move on any successful swim check. But even more importantly, once we reach Legendary in Athletics, it also gives us a swim speed equal to our land speed. And monks have an incredible land speed. At 9th level, monks gain Monk Expertise, increasing our class DC, and Metal Strikes, which causes our unarmed strikes to count as Cold Iron and Silver. I'm not entirely sure why our punches are suddenly Demon and Werewolf approved, but hey, if we can punch supernatural evil more effectively, then that's good enough for me. We also get an Ancestry feat at this level. And while I may grow tired of playing human characters, I will never grow tired of taking Multi-Talented at level 9 for a free multi-class archetype. This time, we're taking the Sorcerer dedication for a splash of our quirky magic. Our choice of bloodline doesn't really matter here, just make sure to pick up something with Primal Spellcasting so that we can snag 2 cantrips from the Primal Spell list. The first is Deep Breath, which lets us hold our breath for up to 8 hours and prevents us from losing our breath when hit. In Heightened, this spell even lets us speak underwater, at the cost of 10 minutes of stored air. The second spell is Tanglevine, letting us use our tongue to slow down fleeing villains by making an attack roll on a creature within 30 feet. On a success, the target takes a minus 10 foot status penalty to their speed for a minute, or until they escape. And on a critical success, the target becomes completely immobilized and still suffers the speed penalty should they escape. Basically, we're weaponizing tongue grabs in the most anime way possible. At level 10, we pick up Slingshot Maneuver, so when an unwilling ally enters a space within reach of our Tongue Lash, we can use our reaction to move the ally 15 feet to another square within reach, before they continue their movement. Not only does this effectively add 15 feet to an ally's stride, but it also opens up a ton of tactical options. We can help an ally gain vertical distance, avoid difficult terrain, slip into flanking position, or even bypass an enemy's threatened area without triggering reactions. And for some battlefield mobility of our own, we take the quick climb skill feat, boosting the distance we travel on successful athletics checks to climb, and once we reach legendary in athletics, gives us a full climb speed equal to our land speed. Just another way Froppy turns every surface into her own personal battlefield. Climbing walls may be fun and all, but at level 11, we unlock the next level of our amphibious athletics, with the wall jump feat. If we aimed our jump adjacent to a wall, we can immediately use that wall as a springboard for another jump, no falling involved, allowing for some seriously ridiculous vertical mobility. Level 11 monks also gain their second path to perfection, this time boosting our will saves to master, and treating all successful will saves as critical successes. That means we keep our composure even when the chaos breaks out around us, and Japan has an epidemic of heroes quitting their job. At level 12, we get the combat climber skill feat, preventing us from being off guard while climbing, and allowing us to keep a hand free for items even when scaling vertical surfaces. We also unlock basic sorcerer spellcasting, giving us an access to a first, second, and third ranked primal spell. At rank 1, Camel Spit will be our basic froggy mucus attack. After casting the spell, we can immediately spit a glob of mucus, and do so again on our following turns up to 3 times total, by making a spell attack roll against a creature within 15 feet. On a success, this spell deals acid damage and dazzles the target for a round, but on a critical success, not only does it deal double damage, but the target also takes 1 persistent acid damage. At this level, the damage might not do much more than make an enemy itch, but the dazzling condition not only keeps us safe, but also our allies as well. We'll pick up Frog Tongue for our rank 2 spell, letting us lash out at a creature within 30 feet with a tongue strike that deals bludgeoning damage with a basic reflex save. On a failure, the creature becomes stuck to the turn, making them off guard and unable to move beyond its reach. They can try to escape using our spell DC, or an ally can sever the tongue with a strike that deals at least 10 slashing damage. Unfortunately, while someone is stuck to our tongue, we take a -2 circumstance penalty to actions with the auditory trait. We'll fill our rank 3 spell slot with a heightened jump spell, letting us jump to any open space within 30 feet with a single action for the next minute. Technically, we can already replicate this ability pretty well with long jumps that don't require a spell slot, but this spell gives us a bit more flexibility, especially for tricky diagonal jumps or vertical angles. Plus, you can give it to an ally, but that doesn't really fit the character. 13th level monks get Graceful Mastery and Master Strikes, boosting our proficiency with unarmed attacks and our unarmed defenses to master. In other words, Froppy just became even harder to hit and a lot scarier to get hit by. We also take Ricocheting Leap. This ancestry feat lets us use wall jump to bounce off creatures larger than us as if they were walls, and once per turn, when we leap off a creature this way, we can shove or trip them as a free action. Did I mention Froppy is extremely mobile? No, seriously, she's really mobile. Alright, so we can move ourselves where we want to be, we can get our allies where we want them to be. What's next? Oh yeah, level 14 lets us start putting our enemies where we want them to be, with the Lassoing Lash class feat. This feat lets us lash out at a foe with our tongue and make an athletics check against their fortitude DC. On a success, we pull them to the nearest adjacent open space, and on a critical success, we can choose to pull them to any adjacent space. However, if we critically fail, we fall prone, so there's a little bit of risk involved. By default, this can only be used on creatures up to 1 size category larger than us, but if we take the Titan Resto skill feat, which we are, this increases the limit to up to 2 size categories larger than us, or 3 if we reach Legendary Athletics. Level 15 monks get Greater Weapon Specialization, giving us another nice boost to unarmed strike damage, and unlock our 3rd Path of Perfection, which we'll use to boost our reflex save proficiency to Legendary, turn all critical failures on reflex saves to regular failures, and only take half damage on failed reflex saves. For our skill feat, we pick up Cloud Jump, an incredible feat that triples our long jump distance, increases our high jump distance to match our old long jump distance, and lets us exceed our normal speed during jumps by spending extra actions. Cloud Jump? More like Stratosphere Leap. That was awful, I'm cutting that out. At level 16, we unlock Whirling Clobber, and if we have a creature grabbed or restrained with our lash, we can start swinging, literally. This feat lets us use that creature as a flailing weapon, making a melee strike against each enemy within reach, ending with a final attack against the grabbed target. And for that last hit, we get a +1 circumstance bonus to the attack roll for each enemy we successfully hit during the spin up to a +3 bonus. Each of these attacks counts towards our multiple attack penalty, but we don't apply the increasing penalty until after we've made the attacks, making this the perfect move for clearing out a villain's entourage in one stylish spin. Once we're done, we can toss the grabbed creature into any open space within our lash range. Of course, not every mission calls for dramatic finishers. For quieter operations, we pick up the Foil Senses skill feat, allowing us to go unnoticed even to creatures with special senses like Scent or Tremor Sense, thanks to Froppy's signature Miracle Mucus, which masks our presence and keeps her stealthy even in the weirdest of encounters. At level 17, monks gain Adamantine Strikes and Graceful Legend, taking both our offenses and defenses to the next level. With Graceful Legend, our defenses hit legendary proficiency, making Froppy one of the hardest enemies in the battlefield to pin down. Meanwhile, adamantine strikes, that's our unarmed attacks, bypass hardness, meaning even creatures made of stone, metal, or other tough materials won't be safe from the flurry of our frog foo. Watch out, Kirishima. We're also picking up the Unbound Leaper feat, which essentially grants us the benefits of the jump spell at all times, except for it's a non-magical effect, so it can't be dispelled or countered. At level 18, we pick up the Slippery Prey skill feat. Since we're now legendary in athletics, this feat lets us attempt to escape multiple times in a turn without suffering from multiple attack penalty. The escape action still has the attack trait though, so this will still rack up the penalty for other attack actions, so beware when you start going on the counter offensive. We also get Expert Sorcerer spellcasting, unlocking our 4th, 5th, and 6th rank primal spells. At 4th rank, we'll pick up Zephyr Slip. When a creature enters a space adjacent to us, we can use a reaction to immediately leap 15 feet away, avoiding danger in true Froppy fashion. And when heightened to 6th rank, that distance increases to 25 feet, and we can bring an adjacent ally with us to safety. Chameleon Goat for our 5th rank spell lets us shift the colors of our clothing and gear to blend seamlessly with the environment while we remain still, granting us a +3 status bonus to stealth checks to hide. The camouflage automatically adapts to environmental changes, though removing any of the affected gear will automatically end the spell. And for our 6th rank spell, we'll pick up Lignify, which will be a stand-in for Froppy's Paralyzing Mucus. A target within 120 feet must make a Fortitude save. On a success, the target is slowed 1 for a round, but on a failure, it becomes slowed 1 and must attempt another Fortitude save at the end of each of its turns. If it fails those Fortitude saves, it becomes even more slowed as the paralysis takes effect. Sure, this spell is a little bit more roundabout and less is directly 1-to-1 as the Paralyze spell, but for some reason, Paralyze isn't on the primal spell list, despite the fact that many natural creatures paralyze their prey, so we had to get a little creative. At level 19, monks get Perfected Form, a powerful feature that ensures consistency in combat. If our first strike on each turn rolls less than a 10, we treat that roll as a 10. No more whiffing our opener on a natural 3. Froppy's Precision has officially reached anime protagonist levels. We also get Canny Acumen, which boosts our Fortitude saves to Master, between Reflex being legendary, Will at Master with automatic crits, and now Fortitude catching up. Froppy is now playing hard to bring down, no matter what angle you come at her from. And finally, at level 20, we pick up the Ultimate Monk class feat, Enduring Quickness, which makes us permanently quickened. Every single turn, we get an extra action that we can use to stride, leap, high jump, or long jump, ensuring something as meddling as action economy does not get in the way of our mobility. Pretty much the only thing that can stop us at this point is if we get knocked prone, but that's okay, because we're picking up the Kip Up skill feat, a slick little feat that lets us stand up as a free action without triggering any enemy reactions. But that's a wrap on our build for Tsuyu Asui, aka Froppy, the rainy season hero. She might not blow up buildings or melt faces, but with unparalleled mobility, support utility, and the right amount of tongue-based chaos, this build proves you don't need to have flashy powers to be a top-tier hero. If you've enjoyed this leap through Pathfinder 2e mechanics, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more builds like this one every week. Got a character you'd love to see in Pathfinder form? Drop it down below. We're always on the lookout for our next challenge. But until next time, keep rolling high, and we'll catch you in the next one.